Welcome to the Recruiting Hogs podcast. I'm your host, Mason Choate, joined as always every Thursday by Alex Trader. We're from HawgBeat.com. That's HawgBeat.com. And this is a podcast talking all things recruiting for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Okay, Alex, busy episode we have today. And we're going to hit a lot of things, including visitors for Arkansas versus Alabama. It's a loaded list of visitors. It seems like every single time that I check your list over at HawgBeat.com over on the Trough message board, there's a new name, big-time names as well. We'll talk about my visit down to Texas, watch Carson Dean, four-star linebacker, commit for the Razorbacks. I'll tell you what I saw from him. And we got a few other tidbits and things to hit. But first, Alex, we knew that going into this weekend, Arkansas versus Alabama, it was going to be a huge recruiting weekend. But the names are lining up, huh?
Yeah, it's been quite a few names added to the list. This is the biggest one of the season, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's bigger than the Cincinnati one, and for good reason. It would have probably been even more of a amazing atmosphere to be at for these recruits if Arkansas was able to win against A&M. Unfortunately for the Hogs, that didn't happen. But you've still got quite a few names. You've got a five-star coming in Ryan Wingo, little brother of Ronnie Wingo. I'm sure Razorback fans are familiar with him. But there's just so many big names. You got DJ Lagway, who announced he's coming last night. A couple other four stars, a cousin of Dominique Johnson, who's a four-star defensive back. And then a bunch of the commits are going to be in town. There are still a couple of guys that I've heard might be in town, but I haven't been able to confirm it, so I haven't put them on the list. But I will be adding to that visitor list over at HawgBeat as I'm able to get more confirmations.
Yeah, so based on my count that you have here, I've got you having 12 committed players coming and then 14 targets, including, as you mentioned, Ryan Wingo, DJ Lagway. Some big names. Walker White will be in town. So, of course, this is a game that you want those guys at. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere, and you always want those guys to be there. And then, of course, on the basketball front, Bay Fall's going to be there. We'll have to get with Jackson Collier, our basketball recruiting guy, on what all basketball guys are going to be there. He said he's reaching out to his sources, trying to figure out who else is going to be there. So whenever we get that figured out, it'll be on the Trough at HawgBeat.com. That's what you get when you subscribe. You get that information. But Alex, when you look at a game like this, Arkansas versus Alabama, big time game, big time crowd. If you're the coaching staff, when you bring these players in for a game like this, I mean, of course you want them to see the atmosphere, but how important is it for your team to be very competitive against Alabama? Because you don't want to bring these guys, these big time guys who probably also hold. I know some of them probably hold offers from Alabama, so an offer from Alabama. So you want to look competitive against this team, right?
Yeah, and this is probably a game a couple of years ago where you're not inviting this many people. You're not trying to bring as many top level guys in because, to be quite frank, Arkansas really didn't have a chance against Alabama in any of the last couple of years that the game was in Fayetteville. So it's a testament to what the staff's been able to do with their on-field coaching, that they can get these people here and feel comfortable with the idea of them watching their Arkansas team perform against Alabama. Whether or not you're able to keep it close, I think does play kind of a factor. But what I've heard from a lot of the people who have visited already is that they like seeing the atmosphere. They like seeing all the Hogs fans. This is going to be a packed out game. They like seeing, interacting with the players, interacting with the staff, being able to, after wins, they've been able to go in the locker room. So this is all stuff that the staff is doing to make it feel like home. And whether you win or lose, it's certainly, you need to keep it respectable, but I don't think a close loss or even, potentially a 1-2 touchdown loss is going to eliminate Arkansas's chances with these kids.
So if you look at this list, and there's 12 commits that you have on this list, but there's we mentioned the targets. You talked about how over here on the board how DJ Lagway, it's his third visit in a year, I believe, and so of these guys who are the targets, is there really anybody that you're thinking, maybe if this visit goes well, maybe it'll be the deciding factor for them to choose Arkansas? I don't know if you've got a good gauge on some of these guys or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're looking at a commitment watch type of weekend. You never know with the in-state kids. I mean, seeing your hometown team beat Alabama would be a heck of an accomplishment and something that might get you, not to say drinking the Kool-Aid, but to get you right in and make you feel comfortable making that decision right away. Um, I Out of the in-state kids, I think Charleston Collins will be taking his time as well as TJ Lindsey. Collins does hold an offer from Alabama, so this could be a big chance for Arkansas to show what he's able to show what they're able to provide for him. But Ryan Wingo, if you're able to see, your brother's alma mater go out there and compete against one of the best teams in the country and win, that's another huge thing to look at. And you've also got kids from around the state or around the country. There's a California prospect coming in out of 2025 and Noah Mikhail. So just really, really a diverse, around the country, you've got a diverse group coming in, not necessarily your traditional demographic of just in-state kids or just kids from, around Texas, around Missouri, around Oklahoma. You've got everybody coming into town this weekend. So I think I don't know if anyone's going to pull the trigger, but I do think that this can certainly start to separate Arkansas and show that they're a legitimate, top level program that in addition to the family atmosphere, in addition to the relationships, will allow for you to go out and compete at the highest level in the best conference in football.
So another thing that we need to mention is Vyson Lang. So this is a guy that at one point you had, future casted to Arkansas for good reason. I mean, you were hearing stuff that made sense, and it felt like that was going to be the case. But it seems like it's trending another way. He was supposed to visit Arkansas this weekend. Now he's going to Auburn, LSU. Just kind of talk about him and I mean, he's a four-star offensive tackle, a guy that you would like to have, but now it's really just looking like that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, so he took a visit to Tennessee last weekend. Is a guy that, after Arkansas missed out on Connor Stroh, missed out on Madden Sanker, missed out on Charles Jagusa, the staff seemed confident that they were going to be able to bring in Lang. He's a kid from Alabama who, would fit in with the group of Alabama commits that Arkansas has right now. Included them in his top 6 earlier on this fall, and Arkansas kind of just appeared to have been losing traction for a while. For a couple days after I made my future or flipped my future cast to Tennessee, was no longer expected to take his official visit this weekend, and then confirmed it last night that he'd be in Auburn. So it looks like Arkansas is out of this race, despite once being, the clear front runner. It's unfortunate for the staff, but I still think what you have built in this 2023 group is really, really impressive. And this might allow, there are some concerns about, right now on this year's team, the defensive backfield. You've got a couple kids coming in. Jalen Braxton's one who could even start next season or make a true impact next season. But it might allow for you to go out there and start chasing, potentially trying to flip a defensive back commit or bring in someone who might be able to help you in a position of need sooner rather than later.
Okay, so but one thing with the Lang decision for him to not come to Arkansas anymore for his visit this weekend, what do you think that could be attributed to? Do you think it's more of like he looks at these other schools and he prefers them, or maybe he looks at the situation at Arkansas? They got some good young offensive linemen behind the very experienced starting offensive line that they have now, and maybe he doesn't feel like he'll be able to compete with them. Maybe he's been told that he can't compete with them. What do you think that that's really attributed to?
Yeah, so despite his tweet that he was available to all interviews, he's been notoriously hard for me to get a hold of throughout this process. I've only been able to talk to him once, and it's I haven't gotten quite a great read on that. I do think his visit to Tennessee last weekend, if you see his Twitter, he says, orange might be my new favorite color. This is the best college football, best game atmosphere I've ever been to. So I think a lot of it is that he enjoyed his time in Rocky Top. But he is an Alabama kid, so it does make sense that he's going and taking that visit to Auburn, giving his hometown school one more chance, as opposed to, he might not have that same relationship or that same sentimental value with Arkansas. I kind of think that if Arkansas was able to get him on campus this weekend, and that would be one case where the Hogs would really need to go out and make a statement against Alabama. But I think they would have maybe had a chance to sway him back over, but with the visit being out of the way, I'm pretty sure that Arkansas is out on this one.
All right. Well, let's move on to the HawgBeat marquee matchup that I was at last Friday, and that was down there in the Dallas area. What went to go see Carson Dean, and he's a 4-star commitment, linebacker commit. Watched him; he racked up 13 tackles against Flower Mound there in Texas, and I'll tell you what, a well-spoken kid. He's already good with the media, you know that. And there's an interview with him over at HawgBeat.com and on the HawgBeat YouTube. Check it out. Interview along with highlights of him. What I was really impressed with from him was his speed and his athleticism. And he said that the staff has already told him that he's going to fill that Drew Sanders role, which is kind of a guy who is very athletic. He can play that in the middle of the field, but they also want him to rush off the edge, and that's something that his team kind of took him away from, and now he's serving as that middle linebacker, the quarterback of the defense, and they rushed him a few times, but they never really gave him an opportunity to make a play in the backfield. But he swarms around the field. He's very athletic. He did struggle with tackling. There were a few missed tackles that he had that I think he should have made. But that happens. He's still in high school. Things get fixed, but I think that this kid's going to play at Arkansas. He's going to do well at Arkansas. Fits the mold of a linebacker that Michael Scherer wants. And so you can go check out his film over at the HawgBeat YouTube. Alex, you said you haven't figured out what the marquee matchup is going to be this weekend, but tell us a little bit about what you're thinking.
Yeah, I haven't quite yet. I'm thinking about Little Rock Mills as they take on Maumelle. We've got Charleston Collins over there, 2024 kid, not yet rated by Rivals. I've been told his rating was coming in a couple days, and that was a couple weeks ago. I followed up, haven't gotten much out of that, and he's still not showing a rating. So he is rated by other services as a 4-star, so that you can take that into consideration. Holds an offer from Alabama, so he is the real deal. Taking on Maumelle, their new head coach was a part of Little Rock Robinson's staff last season that won the state championship. And they also have James Joyner's brother, the 2022 the freshman running back for Arkansas. His brother's over at Maumelle, so that is a kid that Arkansas probably has their eye on. I would be excited to see that one. I'll need to do a little more digging. That's my tentative idea of where I'm going. But just going back to the linebacker group for 2023, you're talking about kids that Michael Scherer wants. There might be, a kid that Michael Scherer and Brian Harson are really looking for, and that would be Alex Sanford, another member of that 2023 group. From Oxford, Mississippi, will also be taking an official visit to Auburn this weekend as they take on LSU. Was supposed to be last weekend against Missouri. Arkansas, I'm sure, would have much rather seen him at that game since it was such a disaster for the Tigers. Both Tigers, Auburn and Missouri, that was really just a gross game to look at, and really came down to the wire. Both teams seemed like they were trying to lose it down the stretch. But I have spoken about it a little bit on the message board. Mason, do you have any qualms with recruits going on official visits when they're committed places?
I mean, yeah, I think it's stupid, and I think that it's not stupid. It's not stupid, but I think that it's tough because I don't want to say. I'm trying to think of how to put this, because if I say that from an Arkansas perspective, I don't want him to not show loyalty to the university, then that makes me kind of sound like a fan. But I think that you're not showing loyalty to that team that you did say, hey, I'm committed to you. And if you're committed to somebody, then why are you going and looking at other schools? Like, I get it from the kid's perspective. Like, he wants to go look at these other schools, test it out, get all the free stuff, get a trip paid for, go check this out. But also it's like, if you're committed to a school, you're committed to a school. Don't go look somewhere else, because then that shows that maybe you aren't as committed as you said you were. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, and funny enough, the media kind of grilled Brent Venables earlier this summer when he said basically the same thing. He said, once you're committed to me, I don't care if you commit early, go take all the visits you want to do. But once you're committed, I would really prefer you not to be taking other visits, just because that is a distraction at that point. And I understand Sanford committed right after his official visit earlier this summer to Arkansas, so he may be thinking he jumped the gun before exploring all his options, and that's fine. And with the transfer portal nowadays too, it's weird to me not to see kids taking all 5 of their visits, because for everybody, the first destination doesn't always stick. It is nice to have those relationships and have that experience of knowing, I've committed to Arkansas. I've been to Arkansas, but I also saw Auburn, really liked Auburn, or I also saw, Ole Miss, and I really liked Ole Miss. Those things are they make sense. But we've seen it with Micah Teese, where he took an official visit to A&M a couple weeks ago. Sanford now taking a visit to Auburn, who, I've seen other places that they're giving Auburn a 50 to 55% chance of flipping Sanford at this point, as he is their number one linebacker target still on the board. So that's really interesting. I will hopefully follow up with him. I reached out to him about asking about the visit when I found out about it. Heard a little bit, didn't get too much there. I'll reach back out to him, but it is an interesting thing to look at, and one that I'll be monitoring pretty closely. And I'm sure the Arkansas staff will too.
All right. Well, big weekend for Arkansas in recruiting. I do want to mention that I went to Carson Dean's game. I forgot the name of his high school. It's Hebron High School. That's my fault. I'm sorry, Carson. I just completely forgot. That's why I kept saying his school and not like the school name, because I couldn't think of it. But it's Hebron High School. Actually, I didn't know this, but Dietrich Wise went to Hebron High School, and so did Jamal Adams. So, pretty good list of guys that came from that school that ended up being really good defenders. So maybe Carson Dean can be the next in line. All right, that's gonna do us.
My girlfriend's alma mater in that game, Marcus. They've got
really?
a as well in their own right. So not necessarily an easy matchup. Hebron did go on to lose that game pretty close, but it was a heck of a game. I was driving over to Texas as well, but I was getting the notifications from Max Prep, so I saw the final score, and I was actually a little surprised. I think in my preps preview last week, I did pick Hebron to win pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and then I was watching the game, and I was like, "What's going on?" So, I'm not going to say anything about coaching decisions, but there were some questionable things in that game. I think Hebron could have won it, but you're right, Marcus did win, and that was that. Carson Dean, actually, I mean, we talked to him after a loss, and he was fine. Like he was very happy to talk to us. He was a good interview, so he might be one of those players in the future if he ends up, being a difference maker at Arkansas. He might just be one of those guys, like a bumper pool type, where they send him up to the microphone after every game. So, but that's going to do us for the Recruiting Hogs podcast. And Alex, you have one more thing to add?
Yeah, so I know there's been a little bit of a lull in the guests department. We had Dallas Young a couple weeks ago. We will have TJ Metcalf from Alabama, fresh off of his visit to Arkansas this weekend. We'll have him on the podcast next week. We'll be talking to him Thursday, so keep an eye out for that. He'll be recapping his visit, and you'll also get to learn a little bit more about him as a player, and then also as what kind of person the Razorbacks are going to be getting. So I'm looking very much looking forward to that interview, and I think you guys should be as well.
All right, Alex, thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Recruiting Hogs podcast. Visit HawgBeat.com, HawgBeat.com, for all of the recruiting info that you need. As we mentioned earlier on in the episode, over at the trough on the message board, that's where we're putting that visitor list, all the little inside info that we got, the tidbits, all of that is on the trough, so make sure you subscribe to HawgBeat.com. All right, talk to everybody next Thursday when we have TJ Metcalf on the Recruiting Hogs podcast.